I switched x and y, solved for y. Now I'm going to multiply both sides by 5. Now look, this is a mistake I've seen you make. Look, look, look. Some of you are distributing the 5. The reason we're doing this is because the 5 cancels with this 5. Okay, you don't do anything to the numerator. And then I'm just using my skills to get y by itself. I would add 15, right? Last step would be what? Divide it by 4. Now you can divide individually like this, so y would equal that, or you could write it, and I'm just going to use this. I won't mark it wrong if you don't, but that's the symbol for inverse, right? The h of x with the negative 1. Or you could write it as 5x plus 15 all over 4. Either this or this would be fine, okay? When do you have to separate it? If one or both can be simplified. Like if it was 15 over 3, you can simplify that. So 15 over 3, we would have rewritten that as a 5. Okay? Which one? It would be, so if that were a 3, it would be 5x over 3 plus 3. Or, yeah, plus 5. Sorry, plus 5. Yeah. And I think it happens in this, similar. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. Switch x and y, solve for y. So get y by itself, I'm going to subtract 1. That gives me x minus 1 equals negative 2y. And then divide everybody by negative 2. Again, if you do it as one big one like this, you have to decide, can I leave it like that, or do I have to separate it? And we don't leave negatives in our denominator, okay? So we can't write this answer the way we wrote this answer, okay? There's a little bit we have to do of like cleanup. This is, so let me just show you off the side here. X over negative 2, right? That's what we have right here. You can write that a whole bunch of different ways. You can write it as negative 1/2 x, where the negative is kind of like at the top. You could write it as where the negative is like in the middle. You could write it with the x on top and the 2. Those are all the same thing. What they all have in common, though, is no negative in the denominator. It moved either to the top or in the middle. But all of these mean the same thing, okay? Then we have negative 1 over negative 2. What's negative 1 over negative 2 going to equal?
0.5?
Yeah, or just positive 1/2. And so JT wrote it as a decimal, perfectly fine. 0.5 is fine, okay? So I have my inverse would be any of these. Pick which one you like. It doesn't matter. Okay, now please show me where your final answer is. Some of you write all over your paper. I try so hard to find your answer, but if I can't figure out what you wrote, you're going to lose points. So box it, circle it, do something so I know that's your answer. And if you show these steps like I did, I can see where you made a mistake. I don't just look at your final answer and go, oh, it's wrong, no points. I look at your steps. Oh, they accidentally subtracted 15 here, which made all 500 steps after it wrong, right? But it's not a big deal. It's one little mistake that changed the whole thing. So when you show the steps and make it so I can read them, then I can give partial credit. I always try to do that, okay? Are we good on those two? We're going to actually practice it in these next two problems too. All right, so that was 6.1, I think, and I think this is 6.2, and then the back, I believe, is 6.3. Okay, so if you still have to take the quiz, Robbie just comes to the front of my head, I don't know why, but there are a few others. That's some of the problems, and same here, okay? So notice the directions are the same in the beginning. Find the inverse of each function. Same thing we did up here, find the inverse of these. Then we'll talk about the second part, which is to graph them. all right? So I'm just going to come down here to have some workspace, and I'm going to rewrite that. Same exact thing I did up there as I did up there. Switch x and y, solve for y. Okay? Guys, I even kept the order the same like always. You know I'm not here to trick you. You know number 1, number 2, number 3, they're going to be exactly like this, just different numbers. So study. Ask me questions if you have them. All right, I have to get y by itself. Remember, this is division. Opposite of division is multiplication. If I multiply both sides by that denominator, I'll get 2x over here. These 2's cancel. I'm not distributing it. You don't touch the numerator. Subtract 1 from both sides. And my inverse is 2x minus 1. Okay? So you get points for doing that. That's the find the inverse part. Now, the graphing doesn't need to be hard, guys. All you're doing, let's go like right here, is you're going to make an XY chart. And we're always going to plug in -2 to 2. Why we use those numbers? It's a little bit of negatives, a little bit of positives, and it's right in the middle. Okay, so those are just nice numbers to use. Oh, so sorry. So sorry. Okay, so you're always going to use those numbers, and I'm going to plug them in. Use your calculator. Don't try and do it in your head. -2 plus 1 gives you -1. -1 divided by 2 is -0.5. So -1/2 or -0.5, up to you, doesn't matter. Decimal, fraction, makes no difference. When I plug a -1 in here, I will get 0, I'll get 1/2, I'll get 1, I'll get 3/2 or 1.5. Okay, I used fractions there and a decimal there. Who cares? These are all points that I'm going to graph. Is make sure you're able to plug these in and get the correct answers. Don't just take my word for it. Make sure, am I able to plug in a -2 here and get -1/2 or -0.5? Like you have to be able to put in your calculator correctly. So when we're done, if you were having problems with this, you're not getting the right answers, I'll come over and help you, one-on-one, so just let me know. Right? I'm going to graph those points. They're just points. Left -2, down 1/2. All right, right there. -1, 0, 0, 1/2. It's hard to graph fractions, but it's not impossible. It's fine. 1, 1, 2, 1.5. It should make a line, right? This is a line. It's x to the first. If you've got a point way out of it and it doesn't line up, that means you made a mistake here. It's a sign that something's wrong right here. But ours does make a line. There is f of x. Okay, that's f of x. The worst is over. Okay, now to graph f prime of x, I could do all of this again, right? I could plug in -2 to 2 and all that stuff, but I don't need to. I can do the inverse, means switch to x and y. So I'm just going to take my xy chart from here and flip it. So -2 to 2 here. And then I graph those points. So there's a lot of points that you can earn on here or lose. You just skip one of these problems. Think about it. I don't know what the point breakdown will be, but that's worth a lot of points. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So show it. Show me this. If there's a mistake in there, well, I'll see it if I see the steps. That's not going to change the fact that this is right. Or maybe you do your XY chart wrong, but everything else is right. Like, just show the work so I can give you points where appropriate. Okay, so let me graph these points. To the left, -1/2, down 2. Right about there. 0, -1, 1/2, 0, 1, 1, 1.52. Again, those should make a line. So if they don't, you might have graphed it improperly. You should always have lines. Good? Okay, let's do another one. Exactly the same. Switch x and y, solve for y, graph. So here's my y. I'm going to make it an x. Add 3, and that's it. Okay, then we make our XY chart. Same X values. Plug and chug. I would pick up the calculator if this was the test, and I'd plug in -2 minus 3, -1 minus 3, 0 minus 3, 1 minus 3, 2 minus 3. Yeah. The -2 to 2 is standard, if you will. We always use those values, okay? So you're always going to use -2 to 2. Yeah. That's okay. So he's saying, do I really have to rewrite this and flip it? I guess that's okay if you don't. Okay, so let's graph it. So to the left 2, down 5. Left 1, down 4. 0, -3. 1, -2. 2, -1. Again, we should have a line. If any of those points are out of the line, something's wrong in your chart. But we're good. If I flip it, and graph them, left 5, 2. Did you ask me a question? What? Yeah, these end up being parallel because they have the same slope, 1x. But nice observation, Shane. And again, it should make a line. If not, something wrong with your XY chart. Okay? Do you guys wish you could take 6162 quiz over again now that you really know it? But that's 6162. Okay, so that's the quiz if you still have it. All right, let's go to the back. See how we do back here. Y'all hate this stuff. You guys hate these types of problems. We've got to deal with them though, okay? So 4 problems. You could have the G of, remember that's of, you could have times. Look at the difference between those 2 symbols. Look at them closely. That's an open circle. That's a teeny tiny little dot. This is G of F, and this is G times F. G times F, H plus G. So it could be adding, subtracting, any of those things, okay? So G of F of A. We always, whenever we have that open circle, that's where we work right to left. So I'm going to take F of A, and if you don't like A, change it to an X. It doesn't matter. And I'm going to take that, and I'm going to plug it in. Watch, watch, watch. Easy mistake to make here. I'm going to plug it in for A. Okay? So when I plug A plus 3 in for A, the negative is on the outside of the parentheses. again, I'm putting a plus 3 in for a. What is that negative out in front? That's like negative 1 times a minus 5. That's what that really means. We just don't write a negative 1 in front, right? We just know if there's no number in front of a variable, it's 1. So when you see it like that, it's easier to see, all right, I'm just taking the a out, the negative 1 is out in front. And I just distribute. So negative 1 times a is negative a or negative 1a minus, almost wrote a plus sign there, negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. Bring down the negative 5. Are there any like terms to combine? Yeah, right there. And that's your final answer. So negative 3 minus 5 is negative 8. And that's where that came from. Good? So times, closely look at that. I'm going to put f of t, oh no, I'm just multiplying, sorry, just multiplying them together. It doesn't matter which parentheses you put first, okay? I'll just put it in the order it says. Because multiplication order doesn't matter. But I'll just keep it in the same order for no reason, really. This is FOILing or distributing. Remember, you're doing 4t times everything first, and then we'll do negative 4 times everything. So 4t times t to the third, we add our exponents. 4t to the third, 4t times 5, 20t. We're done with the 4t. Same thing, but with the negative 4. Negative 4 times t to the third is negative 4t to the third. And negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. But what do I want to do? Because you're going to lose 1 point if you leave it like that. Standard form. Is that you, Sarah? You're like butter today. You're on a roll. I'm going to put it in standard form. So the biggest exponent first, right? Then the next exponent. Oh, did you just get it? She's like butter. She's on a roll. Good. Another times. Yep, exponents in D, exponents. 4, 3, 1, 9. Exponents. Yeah. Okay, another multiplication. So remember, you're adding exponents. If it helps you to put those ones there so you don't forget, good. Negative x times 4x is negative 4x squared. A negative times a negative is positive, so negative x times negative 3 is positive 3x. How are you feeling about it, Matthew? Yeah. All right, so 4 times everybody, so negative 4. Negative 4 times 4 is negative 16x. And negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. Negative times negative. Use your calculators tomorrow. You're going to lose a point if you don't do something. What do we need to do? Put what together? He says them two. He goes them two. Yeah, the two in the middle, right? Because they're like terms. You can combine them. You're right, Dylan. You are right. 3 minus 16 is negative 13. We didn't have to do that in the last problem. There were no like terms to combine. We just had to put it in standard form. But here, we have two terms that can be combined. Our answer is now in standard form as well, so that would be the end. Good. And then addition. Again, the order doesn't matter for addition. I'll just leave it in the order it tells us to. Remember, if this were subtraction, and I can't remember if I put subtraction on your test, what would you have to remember to do before you start combining like terms? Change their signs in the second set. So if this was a negative, you would distribute the negative, then combine like terms. So you can start here, but why not do everything at once? Meaning start with the biggest exponent. X to the third can only add with other x to the thirds. There's no other x to the thirds to add to. And he would go first because he's got the biggest exponent. Remember, it's addition. You can start anywhere you want. The order doesn't matter. 5 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 5. So it's okay that I started over here. And then x to the second would be the next one. He has no friends to add with too. So that's just x to the second. What comes next? What? Yep, negative or minus 3x, and then plus 5. That's it. Really putting it in standard form was the whole problem. Because adding and subtracting, you have to have the same letter, same power. And none of them had that. So that would be all you do for that problem. Okay? Last set of problems. Use absolute value symbols if necessary. That is the even, odd rule. Okay, so we'll review that. I don't know why there's a second simplify yet. Whatever. Anyway, all right. So the square root of 9. Okay, that's a perfect square. The square root of 9 is 3. That's done. And then what number is our root? What root is this? 2. You're never going to see it written there. But if there's nothing written there, you know that that is a 2, okay? It's never going to change and mean suddenly 17, okay? It's a square root. And you just divide your power by that number. So that's x to the 6 divided by 2 is 3. Then we do the y. Y to the 10 divided by 2 is 5. No radical, right? They were all perfect squares, is what we said. All right, even, odd. Right away, it's even. That's where we're starting, even. Okay? So if that number is a 2, a 4, a 6, an 8, a 68, we start going through those. We never worry about the number. The number 3 is not going to suddenly morph into a negative. It's a 3. X's and Y's, we don't know what they are. We have to say that they're positive using absolute value symbols if it's an odd number. So even here, and I'm going to do X and Y separately. If I had the whole alphabet, I would do it for each letter. So X to the 6, that's even, right? I'm just going to use the letter E. And then what is the 3? Odd. So we have even, odd. X to the third is going to get absolute value symbols. Let me wait, because if Y needs it, we'll put it around both instead of 2 separate. But if you did 2 separate ones, it's not wrong, okay? Just a little messier. All right, so on to the Y, we have even, of course. 10 is even, and 5 is odd. Now, you don't have to write all that E's and O's. I'm just trying to make a point. So both X and Y require absolute value symbols. Sometimes neither, sometimes one, sometimes both. And that would be the final answer. You would not include the 3. Okay? That's the answer right there. Okay? Do you guys remember where to find cube roots in your calculator? Cube roots are math number 4. I don't have my calculator, so double check me. Hit the math button, hit the 4, and you'll have a cube root on your screen. The cube root of 8 is what? 2. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. Okay? And then b to the 9 divided by 3.